How did you acquire my health care records, Paula Metzler in Penfield Town Court? What's my name, Paula Metzler? Given your age and enfeeblement, do you know my name as you're looking at me? Do you know how I have civil and constitutional rights, Paula Metzler, under the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act? Do you understand that fact, Paula Metzler? That I have rights and that my health care information is protected under the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act? Because you, Paula Metzler, when I was in Penfield Town Court, asked me a question, the answer to which is only known by my mother, my father, and my ex-girlfriend. And now you. Anyone else that discovers it because of what has happened to me. But you have unauthorized access, and the breach notification rule, the HIPAA, applies to you, you bald-headed, disgusting hack. The HIPAA breach notification rule 45 requires HIPAA-covered entities and their business associates to provide notification following a breach of unsecured protected health information. Civil and breach notification provisions implemented and enforced by the Federal Trade Commission applied to vendors of personal health records and their third-party service providers. Are you a vendor of a personal health care record, bald-headed, wig-wearing Paula Metzler? Because you're not a vendor of a personal health care record, and yet you have my records right there in front of you. Doesn't matter if it's a piece of paper that's from my records. You have information from my records. What are you doing with information from my healthcare records? And that's because one of these fanatics, degenerates, sociopaths, and criminals that work for Todd Baxter gave you the information. That's what I'm going to tell the United States Department of Justice, the Department of Health in Albany, and the Department of Health and Human Services in Washington, D.C. Breach notification rule. Definition of breach. A breach is generally an impermissible use of disclosure under the privacy rule that compromises security, privacy, and protected health information. An impermissible use of disclosure of protected health information is presumed to be a breach unless the covered entity or business associate as applicable demonstrates that there is a low probability that the protected health information has been compromised based on a risk assessment of at least the following factors. The unauthorized person who used the protected health information to whom the closure was made. You're the unauthorized person who used the protected health information. So, this is a disgrace what you have done to me, Paula Metzler. Impermissible use of disclosure. You're sitting there with my healthcare records. That's an impermissible use of disclosure. Presumed to be a breach unless the covered entity or business associate as applicable demonstrate there's a low probability that the protected health information has been compromised. You compromised my health information. And these exceptions here don't apply to you. How could it possibly apply to you? Because I'm trying to be fair to you by reading it. And I'm not going to accuse you of a crime unless you have not committed a crime. There are 3 exceptions to the definition of a breach. The first exception applies to the unintentional acquisition. That's not you. This is not an unintentional acquisition. You were given my healthcare records, Paula Metzler, by employees at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, these fanatics that work for Todd Baxter. Second exception applies to the inadvertent disclosure of protected health information. That's not inadvertent. You're sitting there, they handed my documentation, it went from their hands to your hands. That's not inadvertent. The final exception applies if the covered entity or business associate has a good faith belief that the unauthorized person to whom the impermissible disclosure was made would not have been able to retain the information. I retain all my information. So, Paula Metzler, what are you doing with my healthcare documentation? What are you doing breaking federal law that is the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act? You are in breach, Paula Metzler. When I appeared in front of you in Penfield Town Court, it was because I was walking in front of Wegmans after I went to Canandaigua National Bank. And I've said this to you repeatedly, but I don't know if it reaches you. So I'm trying to reach you, Paula Metzler. I walked in front of Canandaigua National Bank. I had $21.39 in my pocket. You were told to be in Penfield Town Court. What's the name of the employee at Sheriff Todd Baxter's Jonestown that called you and told you to be in Penfield Town Court? Because there you are, waiting for me. They filed me from Canandaigua National Bank after I drew $40 to bring the total up to $61.39. I walk down Penfield Road, make a right on Sanders Farm Drive, make a left on Little Pond Way. I get to the pharmacy entrance of Wegmans. 5 vehicles, 11 employees converged upon me. One of the Monroe County Sheriff Office employees exited his vehicle, lowered his shoulder, ran at me, knocked me down. My head slammed against the concrete pavement. I was violently attacked. Bald-headed, wig-wearing Paula Metzler in breach of HIPAA right outside the pharmacy entrance. They put me in the backseat of the vehicle. I had to go get an MRI. I'm deposited in front of you, guilty, Livingston County Jail with no due process, and Paula Metzler, pay attention. There's no assistant district attorney, no prosecutor from the Monroe County District Attorney's Office present. You imposed a bench trial for me for the express purpose of delivering me to Livingston County Jail. And how do you answer for the United States Department of Justice that I'm in Livingston County when I've lived in Monroe County for 9 years? How are these questions answered? Who told you to be in Penfield Town Court? How did you acquire my healthcare documentation and or records? What's the name of the person that provided you that information? How did you decide to send me to Livingston County when I've lived in Monroe County? I'm going to have question after question after question. And from you, you bald-headed, wig-wearing, hacking criminal, it's going to be refusal, refusal, refusal. Because you do whatever you want in your little library courtroom. Where's the jury? You sick hack, you degenerate, you fanatic, you sociopath, you criminal. Where's the jury? This is why I use this language. For you to sit up there, one person, and determining guilt or innocence, and there is no innocence, is why I describe you as a criminal. You have hatred in your heart. You are consumed by hatred, just like John P. Lomenzo Jr. Do you know the name Daniel Blouse III? Did this 70-year-old train wreck, geezer, grandpa, give you any advice about what you should be doing on Penfield Town Court? Did you look to him to be a mentor? I would guess that that's what happened. And there you are, and you're looking to this guy for direction and guidance on Penfield Town Court. And you don't know that this guy freed a child rapist named Daniel Blouse III because he has a relationship with Daniel Blouse II. John P. Lomenzo Jr. is a child rapist protection racket for Daniel Blouse III because he knows Daniel Blouse II. And there you are, undoubtedly looking to him for guidance and advice to put the screws to innocent citizens. Everybody's guilty. How do you explain to the United States Department of Justice that everyone is guilty in Penfield Court, Paula Metzler? How is that explained? And that's why you refuse to comply with this. December 16th, over and over and over, 10 plus times since December 16th, the name, charge, and sentence of every defendant in Penfield Town Court, John P. Lomenzo Jr., James P. Mully Jr., Paula Metzler. Jermaine Bettman, this violent thug, snaps my head back at the gym. I get a subpoena. I have to go to Penfield Town Court. I'm sitting there. Jermaine Bettman has to appear before James P. Mully Jr. Isn't that right, Julie? And I'm ordered out of the courtroom by one of your disgusting employees in Penfield Town Court because there's a deal between Jessica Wagner at the district attorney's office, the attorney for Jermaine Bettman, and James P. Mully Jr. to let this violent thug walk right out the door. I'm charged with harassment second, sitting in the back seat of Todd Baxter's 1984 Monroe County Sheriff Office vehicle for which I was in jail. And Jermaine Bettman, this violent thug who snaps my head back, appears before James P. Mully, walks right out the door. Isn't that right, James P. Mully Jr.? I want that. I want your signature on the Jermaine Bettman documentation because that's going to certify you endorse his violence upon me and you believe in violence, James P. Mully Jr. So I have $61.39 check because that was in my pocket. This check here, it says Office of the Sheriff. I have this check because I was attacked by Sheriff Todd Baxter's employee. It should never happen in the United States of America to an innocent man. I'm going to be on here demanding information from you. And this is it here. And when I'm going to read this, I'll repeat myself on here and things that need to be repeated. Documentation for the case of Christopher Chichester for John P. Lomenzo Jr. in Penfield Town Court. What is the name of the prosecutor? Sandra Doherty. Total silence. Documentation for the case for Christopher Chichester for Paula Metzler in Penfield Town Court. What is the name of the prosecutor? Sandra Doherty. And they're refusing. Just like this is dated June 26, 2020. What I read there, demanding those two names, this is every foil here. It was 12 at the time. Now it's up to 16. But in these 12 here, what I just read to you, I demanded this. What I just read to you, Paula Metzler, you bald-headed, wig-wearing criminal in Penfield Town Court. What I just read to you, I demanded on June 22nd, June 24th, June 26th. And I demanded that on January 9th. Total silence. That's why Sandra Doherty refuses to provide the name. Because I'm delivered to jail when I haven't committed a crime. And the reason why the prosecutor talks is that there's total silence. I have never committed a crime. Paula Metzler in Penfield Town Court. My name is Christopher Chichester. I am absolutely committed to your removal from Penfield Town Court.